In the application's current state, when I click on a user in the list, it doesn't do anything. We want to animate the camera to focus that user when they're clicked from the list. So the first thing we need to do is create a on-click listener, or add an on-click listener to the user recycler adapter. So I'm going to go down to the bottom. I'm going to create a public interface, and I'm going to name it user list recycler click listener. And then inside we're going to have one method named on user clicked, and it's going to pass the position of that user in the list. So we're going to go to inside of our view holder class. We're going to implement the onClick method. Press Alt Enter and implement the method, the onClick method. So we insert that on there. We're going to create a object or an interface of that interface that we just created right here. We're going to declare an interface of the interface that we just declared. I'm going to call it mClickListener, and we're going to pass a click listener that interface to the constructor of the view holder. So I'm going to call it click listener. Then inside the constructor, I'm going to set it. So mClickListener equals click listener. Then we want to set an onClick listener to the item view. So now we have an onClick listener that's going to trigger, and then in the onClick method we can do mClickListener.onUserClicked and then get the adapter position. So when a user is clicked from the list, the view holder will detect that, and then it's going to send that click to the interface onUserClicked. So we're not quite done in here. We need to first declare an interface object up here. Once again, click listener is what we'll call it. We want to pass click listener to the constructor of the view holder. So mClickListener. And let's see, we need to adjust our constructor here too. So user list recycle click listener, we'll call it click listener, and then mClickListener equals click listener. So that's everything we need to do in the user recycler view or user recycler adapter class. We're going to pass a user list recycler click listener interface to the constructor of the adapter. We're going to then pass that interface to the view holder right here in the onCreateViewHolder method, and then the view holder will handle all the clicks. So we have an onClick listener set to the entire view. So that's going to be each one of these individual list items, the entire view. There's a click listener, and then if it's clicked, the onClick method will trigger, and that click will get passed to the interface, and the position of that user in the list is going to get passed to the onUserClicked method. So now we just need to implement the interface in userListFragment. And you can see it's giving me a warning here because we've changed the constructor, the user recycler adapter constructor. Now it requires a second parameter, a user list recycler click listener parameter. So I'm going to scroll up to the top, and I'm going to implement that interface. So user list recycler click listener, I implemented the interface. I'm going to press Alt Enter to implement the onUserClicked method. So I'm going to click that, and now I'm going to go over to this red spot here, and I'm going to pass this, because this is now referring to the interface that I implemented up here. So I implemented this interface. When I pass this right here, it's passing that interface. So that's good. Now we just need to handle what happens when it's clicked. So that's going to be in the onUserClicked override method right here. So first I'm just going to write a log. So I'm going to type log d, and I'm going to say selected a user, and then I'm going to print some information on that user. So I'm going to go mUserList.get, pass the position that's passed to the onUserClick method, and then get the user ID. So that's just for debugging. I'm just kind of in case something goes wrong, that way I know which user was clicked. Next, I want to get a reference to the user ID. So I'm going to go selected user ID equals exactly the same thing. So if I could type mUserList get position and then get user ID, because we're going to be using that in a second. Now I want to loop through all of the markers that are on the map. So if you recall from earlier in the course, we're actually using something called cluster markers, which is a custom class that we built. So it's in the models package right here. It's a list of cluster markers that are added to the map. So I'm going to loop through all those markers, call it cluster marker, mCluster markers, and we want to figure out which one was clicked. So if selected user ID equals cluster marker get user ID, then we know that that's the one that was clicked. And in that case, we want to animate the camera. So animate camera, We want to do camera update factory dot new lat long, and then we want to pass the latitude and longitude coordinates of that user. So new lat long, cluster marker, get position dot latitude, and cluster marker get position get longitude. And that's going to pass the position of that user. But I'm not quite done. I'm going to move this up and go down here. So we're going to pass a second and third parameter to the animate camera method. We're going to pass a time delay, so how long it's going to take to move that camera. So I'm going to say 600 milliseconds, which is 0.6 of a second, and then we want to pass null for the callback because we don't care what happens when the camera's done moving. We just want it to move. And then after that, we're going to call break to break the loop, and we're all done. So I'm going to run it, and we're going to take a look and see if our camera is animating correctly. Okay, I'll go to the chat room, open up the fragment, going to click a user from the list. So you can see the camera animated there, camera moved there, camera moved there, camera moved there. So everything looks like it's working. Just to confirm, I just clicked on the user named 1, so it should be this guy, and that's the right one. So everything is working as we expect. The last thing I want to do, which is what we're going to do in the next video, is when you determine a trip and then you say click on this trip marker, it just prints out a dialog that says the duration. So what I actually want to do is prompt the user to say, do you want to open this route in Google Maps or something like that, so that if they do want to get directions, they can open up the actual Google Maps application and it will start giving them directions to that location. So that's what we're going to work on in the next video.